Okay, let's start this March 13, 2019 meeting of the Board of Education. Mrs. Hutchinson, please call roll.
Mrs. Crabtree?
Here.
Mrs. Erickson?
Here.
Mr. Gambiani?
Here.
Mr. Hanlon?
Here.
Mr. Matheson is absent. Mr. Vroman?
Here.
Mr. Paulson?
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. It's not too often we have a radio speaking state champion here, so Miss Vine lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up is communication with the whole school. Mr. Biskin.
Absolutely. Mr. Biskin is going to come up to the microphone. I want to introduce Matt Biskin, principal at Wheaton North High School, does a tremendous job, and is going to get us started this evening.
Good evening, the Board of Education, Dr. Schuler, and the district leadership team and community members. I want to welcome all of you to Wheaton North High School. Before I call up one of our outstanding students, Salam Kasey, I'd like to begin by honoring our high school national merit finalists between Wheaton North and Wheaton Warrenville South. These students qualified for this designation by taking the PSAT and were part of an original student pool of about 1.6 million high school students. They're now part of a select group of about 1,500 or 15,000 students and are eligible to earn a national merit scholarship. I'm now going to hand it over to Mr. David Claypool, the principal of Wheaton Warrenville South, so he can honor his students.
Good evening, everyone. We had 4 National Merit finalists this year. Only 2 were able to join us this evening. As is the case at North, and every year they represent the best of who we are as a school in many ways, even beyond academics. So it's wonderful to have them be a part of tonight's meeting. David Tawau is here this evening. We want to congratulate David. David, would you step forward, please? Connell Hecht is also here this evening. Connell. This is our quad of men from Wheaton Warrenville South. The 2 young men who couldn't join us this evening, Stephen Parch and Danny Gelman. So the representatives from Wheaton Warrenville South. And congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
David, I'm going to congratulate you again. Congratulations.
All right, when I call your name, will the Wheaton North National Merit finalists please step forward? Hania Zadurzik. Luke Mondia. William Richards. And we have one senior who's not able to be here tonight, Mr. Scott Taylor. Good job, honey.
Congratulations again. I don't want to stage 2. Congratulations again.
Wheaton North is also proud to have a senior who earned the President's Volunteer Service Award. This award recognizes Americans of all ages who have volunteered significant amounts of their time to serve their communities and their country. And we're proud that Margaret Allen has earned that designation. Please give her a round of applause.
Biskin. We'll do one more student recognition while we're there, and then we'll do the final part of the communication of the host school. So, and I want to introduce Mr. Claypool, who is going to introduce a special staff member, or members that are here are going to introduce a state champion from this year. So.
We are blessed, as I think the board knows, to have an incredible speech team at Warrenville South. I know we have a reputation of being a football school or a boys volleyball school. What most people don't know is that we have more state championships in our speech team than any of athletic programs that we have. And even when we don't win state championships, we're bringing home big trophies. And this year was no exception. And at an individual level, we have a radio speaker who is a state champion. But before I get to Eva, I will introduce Dave DeMarzo, our coach, who is here today. Dave, if you would please stand. I don't know how many years his mom, Kathy, served District 200, but I know it was a few. I will leave it at that. And Dave is a remarkable coach for our program. He's surrounded by, and he'll be the first to tell you, and one of them is someone he goes home to every night, surrounded by several coaches who do a remarkable job with our students. But Dave's dedication, his understanding of how to work with students and help them achieve remarkable levels is without precedent. We had to build a trophy case just for his program. I've never said that before in 16 years as a principal. And so while it cost us a couple bucks, we're more than happy to do that. So Dave DeMarzo, I want to make sure he gets his due tonight too. But Eva Bine, Eva, if you would step forward, please. Eva's a radio speaker, and I did speech my senior year, and I did radio. In fact, I thought one day I would be a radio person or a TV person. At our assembly, she blew me out of the water, so I think I chose the right profession after all. But ladies and gentlemen, a remarkably talented young woman who we will undoubtedly hear or see one day down the road perhaps, but Eva Bine.
Like the space we are in now, Wheaton North has no doubt evolved throughout the years. We've always been regarded as a school that challenges students inside and outside of the classroom by maintaining high standards, providing a rigorous curriculum, offering an enriching fine arts program, and having a very competitive athletic program. However, the main reason our students love coming to school is because of the strong and positive relationships they form with each other and with the various adults who lead and guide them through their 4 years at Wheaton North. Every time someone asks, what's the best part of Wheaton North? An answer that centers on the people is given. There's not a better place for a young person to grow and develop a passion for learning and a sense of self than Wheaton North High School. I know for me, there is not a better place to serve and work, and I know my colleagues feel the same way. A major part of our development as a school is to build a culture where all students feel valued and connected. That challenge starts and ends with faculty, staff, administration, and students. It's a concerted and intentional effort. 2 years ago, we were the focus of an Ed Week story on the topic of equity in schools. It highlighted the work we had done and the work we still needed to do. From that moment, we have taken steps to build our capacity to impact students and honor them for who they are. Sometimes building an all-encompassing culture is messy, uncomfortable, slow, but absolutely necessary. Here to talk about some of our efforts to be a school that works for every student is senior and one of our many outstanding students, Salam Kasey.
Good evening. My name is Salam Kasey, and I'm a senior here at Wheaton North. I'm also the president and the creator of the school's very first Black Student Alliance. I would like to first start off by saying thank you to Mr. Biskin for giving me the pleasure in speaking to you all tonight and giving me the honor to represent Wheaton North student body as a whole, but also various minority groups, specifically African Americans. Thank you again. Representing the student body is a responsibility I take very seriously, so this made writing the speech hard to do. Until Thursday, I realized I can write about how I scream at the principal at every school assembly. Now, I know you're probably thinking that she waited until Thursday to write this speech, or she screams at her principal, but move that inner voice aside because I'm about to explain. At every school assembly, I do indeed scream at Mr. Biskin, but we all do, and he asks for it. He screams, "We are," and we scream, "Falcons." We are proud. We are North. This short phrase that we recite back and forth and wear on the back of our t-shirts made me think, who are Falcons? Why are we proud? And what makes us North? Throughout the past 4 years, I've found different ways to answer this question. First, who are the Falcons? Falcons are the black, the white, the Asians, the Latinos, the European, the gay, the straight, the Muslims, the Christians, the tall, and the short students. We are a variety, and we understand our diverse student body. We are learning to forge ahead of our differences and show off our unique qualities. All of our students come from different backgrounds, different family values, different religious beliefs, and different political views. This creates for a sometimes contentious environment, where some students don't feel safe and some don't feel comfortable. We have embedded a culture of silence, and silence is violence. We choose silence because it's more comfortable. We choose silence because it is the easier thing to do. We choose silence because we believe it will solve the unsolvable epidemic of racism. We choose silence because we feel that it will make Wheaton North the glossy school it's made out to be. Yes, glossy. Wheaton North has this shiny finish on the outside, but it needs polishing on the inside. This polishing will not need to only come from the students, but from teachers and the community as well. And all Falcons have recognized this. This is why we're proud. We're proud because we have recognized that change is needed. Staff and students have come to the realization that people in places of authority, specifically white people, need to be allied with the underrepresented or marginalized groups, like people of color or the LGBT community. Those students sometimes fear walking into school because we fear who is walking into our schools and what they can do to us. Now, we're not proud because we are fearful. We're proud because our voices are always being heard. Mr. Biskin, along with many staff members, have opened their ears to their students. They have allowed us to finally take education back and mold it in favor of its students. For example, our faculty and staff member have created an equity team where they meet and discuss ways on how to bring equality to the classrooms and in the hallways. They have also made a student-directed Socratic seminar full of students from different races, sexualities, and religions that I was a part of and was filmed and shown to all staff members at their faculty meetings. A PSA regarding racism was shown in all English classes, and clubs like Black Student Alliance, OLAS, Mosaic, and the Republicans Club have all made changes to our school. These are just a few reasons as to why we are proud. We're also proud because we're having the uncomfortable conversations that will bring progress to our school in a positive direction. We are learning to be comfortable with the discomfort, and we're teaching our teachers to see our color, acknowledge it, and move forward. Finally, we are North. As I mentioned before, we are all from different backgrounds and going through different adversities, but we, meaning together, represent Wheaton North. We are all hopeful for change. We are hopeful that our glossy outside will start revealing itself on the inside. Our staff isn't only evolving, our students are as well, and we are evolving into a family. We have come to the understanding that we have to struggle before we grow, but the struggle is very real. We still face these problems every day in school and in our community. We shouldn't rely on the people of color to start these conversations about equity and diversity. This is an organic conversation that needs to be started within the Board of Education. It will be an uncomfortable conversation, but change will not come glaring at us or happen right away. It will happen and come in subtle and slow forms. What our school wants is not perfection. It's anti-racist activities and attitudes in its hallways and in its classrooms. After hearing this, I'm expecting the Board of Education to speak up, stand up, and make a change. Thank you.
We talk all the time about why is school important. That, to me, is a great example of why it is important. If it was just about content, especially at the high school level, it was just about content, it was just about memorizing things and then stating them back, we could give every student a laptop. We could send them home. Wouldn't need to come here. I think her comments are very spot on. We are trying as a school to do our best to make every kid feel like they're connected. We predicate the value of our school on the relationships that we build. And we do a great job, but we're going to get even better. And we're being intentional about that to make sure. You look at our 5 essential survey, 95% of our students feel connected. But if our job, if our goal is to make every kid feel connected, then we have to evolve, we have to grow, and we have to learn as a staff to make sure that we include every student. Is it a lofty goal? Absolutely. But it is necessary and it is worthy, and we're doing everything we can to do it. And I think Salam's comments are outstanding. She gets what high school is. It's an experience. It's not something you check off of a list. She has grown as a student from a freshman to a senior, and I'm very, very proud of her. So thank you, Board of Education, for your attention, and that concludes our opening comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get on with the rest of our agenda, I know we have a lot of students and parents, and while we have a very exciting agenda tonight, if you would like to head out, you're more than welcome to. Before we get to public comment, any modifications to the agenda from board members? Okay, next is public comment. We do have one public comment signed up. So public comments are valuable and important to board members. We welcome the opportunity to listen to the concerns and issues that are important to our community. However, it is the board's policy not to directly discuss or take action on any items until the time has been taken to gather adequate information and objectively evaluate available options. Please understand that the lack of action or response tonight does not imply any lack of interest in what is being said. In addition, to preserve confidentiality, the board and its president reserve the right to request that items related to either personnel or students be provided to the board privately or in writing for consideration in a future closed session. The board must protect the civility and decorum of the meeting. Please be respectful for the duties of the board, our district leadership team, and the democratic process in your comments tonight. Please use the microphone, state your name, and address your comments to the board. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Mrs. Crabtree will be timing the comments tonight and raise his or her hand at the time limit is approaching. Please be factual and courteous and do not include statements that are personally disrespectful or condescending to members of the board or staff. If you feel your matter needs to be discussed in more detail, please attend the board's next chance to chat, which is on April 17th, or present your comments in writing via email to the board. We have one speaker signed up, Mary Ann Baton.
Good evening, Mary Ann Fatone. My son graduated here in 2013. Just one comment to Mr. Biskin. Kudos to everyone, but somehow they always forget to mention the parents. And as a parent, we send really good prepared kids to our schools. So it has always bothered me that the people footing the bill and preparing their kids never get mentioned. And parents are a very big part of the success of the students in the school district. So, on tonight's agenda, I know the board's discussing the budget. I see school fees on there. I recently submitted a FOIA requesting the budget of the PR department along with receipts. And I gotta tell you, that FOIA got my blood boiling. This board continues to come to the community to ask for more and more money, because it's for the children. Well, I find out through FOIA that my family's hard-earned money and that of my community is being spent on costume jewelry from Von Mauer for staff appreciation. Our PR department is going around the community to Chamber of Commerce luncheons and fashion shows. In fact, 5 people accompanied that individual to the tune of $500. And let's not forget the Rotary Club Christmas Inn for $900. Then I've noticed that, funds from the taxpayers are to go to educate the students of District 200. So why are we diverting funds away from our students and spending $200 on the Northern Illinois Food Bank 5K foodie in Geneva and $80 on the People's Resource Center Holly and Hope Luncheon? Those are charitable organizations. Your money does not go anywhere but to the students of District 200. This board on a regular basis tells everyone how wonderful the staff and employees are. So if that's the case, I question why you need a PR department, because everyone is great. Aren't they? Everyone's great. I was also dismayed to see that the PR person attended the IASB conference when she's not a board member. And then to add fuel to the fire, we paid $507 for a hotel at the Fairmont. There's no reason for anybody to be staying downtown or in suburbs. There's Uber, there's parking, there's cabs. It is a waste of our hard-earned money. Why are we spending thousands of dollars for membership to 3 chambers of commerce and a Rotary Club? Those are for businesses. The school district is not a business. You don't sell a product. You're not in competition with anybody. You receive large sums of money from the taxpayer. Whether you do a good job or not, every year you get the money. You don't have to really worry about it. My question to the board is, did you know about the expenditures? And if so, you should all resign for dereliction of duty. And if you didn't know, you should know. This is your job. It's your job to be fiscal stewards of the taxpayers, not a cheerleader, as Ms. Crabtree has alluded to. Those board candidates that are running and the board members sitting here, fiscal responsibility, I'm not seeing it here. And Ms. Wheaton has inferred, she's running for school board, that she thinks we should be paying more in tax dollars so we can do more on this kind of spending. This board should not even consider raising parent fees. As with any FOIA, this is going to result in more FOIAs, because I'm wondering how many more employees of the district are whining and dining on our dime. This money is for the education of the students, all students. It's really disgraceful, and how you can continue to try to manipulate the community for more money to enrich yourselves is very sad, disheartening, and unacceptable and disappointing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just for what it's worth, for board members, student fees are not on our agenda tonight. They're just mentioned as a topic for future discussion. Superintendent's report, Dr. Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Just a couple of things that I want to share with the board tonight. Number one, congratulations to all of our students that the board recognized tonight. Again, just I want to take a moment to kind of reflect on that experience. We celebrated academic achievement tonight at the absolute highest level from students on both sides of town. We celebrated volunteer service, right? A student who unselfishly has given countless time and energy to volunteer both to the community, right, and to organizations. We celebrated a state champion, right, in one of our extracurricular opportunities. And certainly what we celebrated tonight, I think in the report from the host school, is the way that District 200 recognizes and gives an opportunity for the voice of our students to shine through. I think that's the very best of certainly what our students are about. I do just want to point out the fact that before the meeting tonight, we had an opportunity for the board to celebrate and say thank you not only to our students, but to their parents that brought them to the reception tonight, so that we can and do recognize them for what it is that they bring to the school district, which is tremendous. So again, thank you for that. Just quickly wanted to mention to the board, last night we concluded our second of our series of safety town hall meetings. We had, I think, 25 people at our first town hall, I think 18 people at our town hall last night. Not quite as big of a turnout as we had hoped for the safety topic, but I think important to say thank you to some of our community partners that gave a lot of time to both of those town halls. We had members of our police departments, fire departments that were there with us, our communications folks that really talked about the joint collaborative effort around our approach to safety, and so I'm really thankful to our partners for their effort. Wanted to mention to the board that you saw tonight and will continue to see moving forward on your agenda under the written reports, an update on the progress of the Jefferson construction. So you can expect for that to be a monthly topic as a written report, just giving the board an update on where are we in terms of construction at the building. I think as the board well knows, we were not really projected to do significant kind of moving of foundation until after the 1st of April as the weather breaks. It was nice to see some weather cross 50 degrees today, because that does actually give us hope that the weather will in fact break so that we can start moving that foundation after the 1st. But we are on target in terms of getting the wells drilled. I think you may have noticed in there that Nicholas indicated that we are at or under budget. Actually, a couple of the bonds that we had to get for the project came in less than what was expected, and so that kind of gives us an early ramp in the right direction in terms of cost. So moving forward, certainly around that. And then the final thing that actually just two more things I wanted to mention quickly. We've shared with the board before that we are going through a policy review process, a customization, so that we can move our policies through the Press Plus piece. We've gotten the first draft of that manual back. We'll be meeting with the policy committee next week to go through kind of a review process for all of those revised policies that came to us. Talk about board review process around that. We've got 60 days to do kind of our first round of edits around that policy manual now. So policy committee's meeting next week, and we'll be hard at work to get that piece done. And then the last thing that I want to mention is that we are getting ready to gear up, begin our state testing. Faith, remind me the start date.
It'll start the middle of the week when we get back, right after spring break. The schools have a little liberty within that window, but it starts Wednesday after spring break.
So a couple of thank yous as we gear up for that. I think as we've shared with the board before, the information on what state tests were even going to look like this year came out incredibly late. We are still getting information on exactly what that system's going to look like, and there are reasons for that. Certainly at the state level, there have been some issues with the request for proposal that went out. But huge thank you to Faith, Julio, their department for getting that information, getting it prepared, getting it out to our buildings so that we can gear up. All of that state testing is going to happen electronically this year, and so Rod and the tech department have had to quickly make sure that that the system is kind of fully ready to handle that. The good news, based on the work that the board has done around the master tech plan, issues around bandwidth, issues around our ability to manage that operation are non-existent. Not to say that everything is going to go perfectly. We may still run into some snags, but as we've prepped and gotten ready, certainly the systems are ready. So again, we responded. We'll have that ready to go in that window after spring break. We'll be able to get all that testing done. So that's it.
Any questions for Dr. Shula? All right, next is the consent agenda with a long 21 items on it. I'm going to read this a little bit differently tonight to try to condense it a little bit. Number one is acceptance of gift to Wheaton North High School Performing Arts Department. Items 2 through 7 are approval of revised policies. Policy 6.50, school wellness. Policy 7.100, health, eye, and dental examinations, immunizations, and exclusion of students. Policy 7.200, suspension procedures. Policy 7.250, student support services. Policy 7.290, suicide and depression awareness and prevention. Policy 7.305, Student athlete concussions and head injuries. Item number 8 is approval of a new policy, 7.260, exemption from physical education. Items 9 through 11 are approval to post new textbooks for community review. French 2 textbook Beyond Deep, German 3 textbook Guignol Click Level 3, Spanish 2 textbook SACDC. Items 12 through 15 are approval of new textbooks, World Civilization 1 and Advanced World Civilization, Child Development, Fashion Merchandising, and Elementary Social Studies. The final 6 items are number 16, approval of professional learning expenditures, request for board members. Item 17, approval of the resolution to authorize transfer of repayable interloan fund from working cash to education fund. Number 18, approval of the resolution to authorize transfer of repayable interloan fund from working cash to the IMRF fund. Number 19, approval of bills payable and payroll. Number 20, approval of minutes February 1st, 2019 for a special meeting, February 13, 2019 open, February 27, 2019 open, and approval to destroy recordings of closed sessions prior to October 2017 as allowable by law. And number 21, approval of personnel report to include employment, resignation, retirement, leave of absence of administrative, certified, classified, or non-union staff. Are there any questions or any items board members want to be removed from the consent agenda? Dr. Schuler, any information?
No, I just want to mention to the board on the approval of minutes. There was a slight correction to the minutes from the legislative breakfast, just correcting one of the introductory comments by Mr. Paulson, but that was corrected and reposted on Monday.
Okay, any questions or comments on the consent agenda items? Rob?
Yeah, I had one question on the physical education. I think it was 8. Wasn't it 8, right? Does that in any way impact the when student athletes in the spring and fall have an excuse from gym to go to study hall? Does that impact that at all?
No. So what it's codifying in the exemptions from physical education are when is a student allowed to be exempt from the daily physical education requirement. Primary focus of implementing that policy was to codify what is an expected practice, and that's if a student has a note from a doctor indicating they're physically unable to participate in gym, that obviously is honored. So daily physical education required per school code. I think some of what you're talking about are under a policy that's called substitutions for courses, and it has some listed exemptions of in what circumstances can a student be exempted out of PE if they're marching band or in sport or those pieces.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Crabtree, seconded by Mr. Broman. Can I have a roll call vote, Mrs. Hutchinson?
Mrs. Crabtree,
Yes.
Mr. Broman,
Yes.
Mrs. Erickson,
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani,
Yes.
Mr. Hanlon,
Yes.
Mr. Paulson.
Yes, the consent agenda is approved. We have one action item tonight to award contracts for transportation services. Dr. Schuler?
Sorry about that. Just getting to the right agenda in one quick second. So this evening we have a recommendation for the Board of Education for the approval of our transportation bid. District bid our transportation services back in 2016. And on May 11th of 2016, the board awarded a 3-year contract to Illinois Central for regular and special education in-district transportation. Both of these contracts do expire on June 30th of 2019. And so we put out a bid both for regular and special education transportation. So there is a fairly lengthy motion this evening for the approval of that contract. The contract for regular transportation services, our regular in-district transportation services, special education in-district transportation, that's base bid A and base bid B, would go to Illinois Central. And that the board would approve the contract with Sunrise Southwest LLC with respect to base bid C, which is our special education out-of-district transportation services. There was a base bid D, which was for single student and small group transportation services. Those are students that are transported via cab. We are asking or recommending to the board that you reject all bids on that one. We still have the ability to, with our existing agreement, to carry for one more year, and we're going to do that under that existing agreement. We put it out with the bid to see if, in fact, we got results that would be favorable by packaging the whole piece, but are recommending the board move forward with base bid A, base bid B, and base bid C to Sunrise Southwest LLC, base bid A and B to Illinois Central. So, Lisa, anything that I've missed in that?
I think that covers it, yes.
Thank you to Lisa. She's been the one kind of shepherding the bid process around transportation. Certainly, as you'll see in the contract for transportation, that's a significant contract for the district in aggregate. That's about a $9 million expenditure each year. We are seeing an increase, obviously, in our transportation. The increase is 6%. The board will remember from the last time you approved this contract, the cost increase you saw was significantly higher. So certainly costs are on the rise in terms of transportation. So again, we think it's a fair bid. We've had good experience, certainly with with Illinois Central, and recommend that we move forward with that.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Just one question. With respect to base bid C, I noticed that Sunrise was the second lowest bid. I know that it's not necessary for us to take the lowest bid all the time. If there are other factors involved, I assume there are other factors involved in accepting the Sunrise bid.
Yeah, there are. So certainly, especially around transportation, you're not required to take the low bid. You're required to do some diligence and ensure that the contractor has the ability to fulfill the contract. We did not feel that to be the case.
How is fuel handled in the contract? Is it completely separate, or is it included are fuel rates included in the contract?
Lisa, I need your help on this one.
Yes, we do request
Can you come up to that?
Yes, in the contract, we asked for a fuel escalation charge, which they then bill us back for. So I set what I think the fuel prices will be for the duration of the contract, and then if the fuel prices go above that, we then get charged the difference. It's a formula that they go through. If it happens to fall less than that, then we get a credit back on the contract. So that's how it's done on this.
And then one more. And then when we have special transportation needs, whether we talked about safety and lockdowns, and Rita, I told her I should know the phrase after yesterday. Reunification, is that built into the contract as well? Those rates are charged, or?
The rates for
So like rates for special service, whether they be activity or if we use the bus to like shuttle between a building.
Yes, we do have that built into the contract in the base bid A. We've got it for field trips, athletic trips. We know what those rates are going to be for the duration of the contract. And actually in this one, our field trip rates do remain constant, I believe, for the 3 years. I believe that's how I wrote it in, which kind of helps for budget. It does help for budgeting for that. But the other ones, we do have they give us a rate for all 3 years of the contract, so we know that going in. So
I have a question. In regards to high school, do we continually monitor I'm a high school bus stop at my house, and I've seen it be where some years there's one child there and 30 others in our subdivision drive to school, and some years I may have 10 kids that are there. Are we monitoring that on a regular basis to make sure we don't have empty buses that are coming? Do we ever consolidate routes during the year?
Yes, we do. I rely on the schools to give me that information. Also, the bus company. We ask for head counts periodically on the buses. As far as the high school buses, as far as assigning students to those buses, they do typically assign more than seats are allowed because a lot of the high school students don't necessarily take the bus on a regular basis. So those numbers sometimes are a little off, I guess, but we do periodically look at that. I know over the last couple of years we have reduced the number of routes. A lot of it is input from the principals that will, give me that information from the community that says, we've got buses that aren't full. So we do look at that regularly.
I've always wondered, especially at the high school level, having had children, one of my daughters has never ridden the bus, and yet it's my house. Do we ever ask people to say, we will not need the bus service to be able to help us get a number? Like we're at the beginning of the year, like I could have said, Sophia will never ride the bus for 4 years. We have
If a student is eligible to ride a bus, we have them down as an eligible rider, which for our state reimbursement claim, we claim those students as eligible riders whether they ride the bus or not. So if you were to in my opinion, if you were to, in Synergy, say, no, they're no longer an eligible bus rider, then that does affect our funding. Now, again, if they're not ever riding the bus, I haven't really thought about taking them out of that.
I think, Chris, one of the, just a thought around that, well, I think it certainly makes sense from a data collection. The reality is, per state law, even if you said that at the beginning of the year, if you changed your mind at any point in the year, we could not hold you to saying, sorry, you can't take a bus.
Okay.
If you are eligible for transportation at the point you want to take the bus, we've got to have a bus that's available. So I will tell you, in looking at the routes, that was something that Lisa and I spent a little bit of time with in light of, I think, another question that the board had been asked around start times. Most of our high school routes probably have a load in the 120 to 130 range. Meaning if everybody showed up that could ride that bus, we wouldn't be able to accommodate them. So we do overfill, especially at the high schools. I know just because I seem to hear this conversation from Mr. Venkis, at the beginning of every year, we run a couple of extra routes at the beginning of the year to make sure we're not off in that. So to make sure that if more kids show up than expected, we have the ability to shuttle them. So again, even into the year, know that it's not just a static, at the start of the year, this are, we adjust, and if we are off and we need more routes, we add them. If we have the ability to consolidate, you do. And the bus company, I will say, has been great in working with us on that as well. So.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, one last thing. We're talking a lot about cost and cost analysis, but I'm sure there were other factors that came into play that we looked at. Can we just share some of that? Like what we talked about, driver certification, performance, safety, maintenance, quality. I'm sure there were other things, but I'm assuming that's true.
You want to talk a little bit about some of the things built into the requirement on the bid around?
Yes, if I can remember them. But I mean, they're the safety and security of the students, the stability of the contractor, financial ability. If they need extra equipment, things like that, the capability that they would have to be able to get that. I did check references. I always check references on all bids. I know Sunrise is new to our district. And I did due diligence with that, definitely called references, checked into them quite a bit. They are currently the contractor for SACID, the Special Education Cooperative, so they actually service that contract, which is, I think, 9 districts maybe? 12 districts, I'm sorry. So there are some possible cost efficiencies we'll be able to see with that if they're able to piggyback on some of those current routes. The bid price is what they've given us, but there may be some ways that we can save money once they get in here and see what our routes are like. But they are a new vendor to our company, so I feel comfortable with them.
Okay, and so Illinois Central School Bus is who we've been using for base bid A and B, and Sunrise Southwest is new, and our legal counsel reviewed the bids we received and our thought process in making this recommendation.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. The long, actually not as long as the consent agenda. Can I have a motion and a second to award a contract to Illinois Central School Bus with respect to the bids that submitted on base bid A and base bid B for regular in-district transportation services and special education in-district transportation services? That the board award a contract to Sunrise Southwest LLC with respect to the bid as submitted on base bid C for special education out-of-district transportation services, and that the board reject all bids submitted on base bid D for single student and small group student transportation services as presented. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Broman, seconded by Mrs. Erickson. Mrs. Hutchinson, would you please call roll?
Mr. Broman?
Yes.
Mrs. Erickson?
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mr. Hanlon?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes, the action item passes. Okay, we have the oral reports. We have 2 oral reports tonight. First is student learning feature. Dr. Schuler.
I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Dahlquist, who's going to handle our student learning update. She's going to do a little show and tell tonight.
Sure. So I'm going to highlight some things that are actually for staff learning. So, and I'm not sure that you know that we have a whole Teaching and Learning Together Google site that we have. And I'm going to highlight it because it helps me talk a little bit about how we can move quickly and have that flexibility that I talked about in our last meeting. So we have a Google site, and it is called Teaching and Learning Together, and it's divided into 2 different sites. There's the teacher posts, they're in the red, and there's district posts in blue. And the who can post, the district side is ESD, people in my department. We post things like pacing guides, vocabulary lists, resources, assessments, all of that. And so if we make a tweak, by tomorrow, everybody has it. And we can put those things out, and they can look at it if they're on the beach. They can look at it at home. Not the days are gone of the big curriculum binders that travel everywhere. But we also have a teacher side, and all staff can post on the teacher side of that. They can post lessons. They can post resources that they found very helpful. They can post common formative assessments that they've made so that not everybody's having to recreate the wheel. So just to give you kind of an example of what it looks like, this is district posts. We break it into early childhood, elementary, middle, and high school. You may not be able to read the small print, but the professional development that we put together is hosted there. All the things on our MTSS site and all the things for student services with special education are all linked through this website as well. Then if you click in, I went to elementary, you can look at all the different grade levels or specialists. Then it's sorted by all the subject areas. And for this, I just gave you an idea of what's under reading, so all of our reflection guides, our pacing guides, our writing words, what an interactive read aloud looks like, all of those pieces to help with the district components and curriculum. And what I love about this, for example, on Social Studies Day, when we rolled all this out, the very next day, it's all posted and people can find it wherever they want it. And if we find a typo or if we make a change, it can be changed immediately and sent out. Then there's the whole teacher post side, and we organize that by assessments, lessons, and resources. And some of the things that we ask staff to think about before they post, is it linked to our District 200 curriculum? Does it follow copyright rules? Is it material and age appropriate? Those types of things. And then teachers can share and put that on. And I went again to elementary and just looked at some of the math things that have been posted. And elementary tends to share a little bit more than middle and high school do, but this is beginning to be a site that really helps everyone work together. So we're going to continue to build it, and we want to encourage staff to share. Sometimes it takes a little guts. I was talking with a teacher after school to put something out there and then the whole district can see it that I made it, but we're making some of that progress. And then our new staff. If you think about an elementary teacher that's got to learn all of those different areas, to be able to have that on one website and get access to it wherever, however they want, has been really good for them. So I just wanted to share that piece. I know that next month I will come back with true student learning pieces.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Oh, I should have stayed up there.
Educational Services Department. That's
Oh,
the
sorry.
umbrella name for
My
FACE
acronym,
department.
sorry. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next up is number 2, the social emotional learning feature. Dr. Salaji.
All right, thanks again for the monthly opportunity to talk about social emotional learning. My focus too is not as much on our students, but on a little bit of what we're doing on the parent education side. So I just want to start by highlighting the phenomenal work that our individual schools, in particular our principals and assistant principals, do in educating our parent community around social emotional learning. A few of those highlights include highlighting the social emotional skills of our kids and celebrating those, not only in their newsletters but through social media. You may also see some stuff come out on the dangers of drug use and vaping. Just most recently, in one of the last Falcon Focuses, you might have seen Mr. Vegas send out some stuff on vaping and parent expectations around that. So much of our outgoing communication really focuses on parent education as well and around the learning that's happening within our schools. Also want to highlight our parent series this year. Mrs. Loiakino worked really hard on that, but it was also in combination with Tracy Burnham from our social work department. I had an opportunity to work with them as well, and we had parent presentations on drug use, vaping awareness, the mental health effects of social media abuse, and managing stress and anxiety is coming up soon as well. And then next Wednesday, I'll be working with myself and Dr. Schuler will be working with the Citizens Advisory Committee to gather input on future efforts to engage and educate our parent community around social and emotional learning. We kind of set the stage for that at our last meeting, and then this Wednesday we'll be tackling that a little bit more to gather input around that area. And what that leads us to is an opportunity that's going to be happening in September 2019. We've scheduled Jessica Leahy, the author of A Gift of Failure, to be our keynote speaker and really kick off our parent series next year. Jessica really speaks, and we have a copy of your book. I know some of you have it, but if you don't have it, we have copies here for you. Jessica speaks really about many of the things that you heard Mr. Biskin talking about today. Her first kind of tenet is really around the relationships and the connected piece within schools. But then she lends the piece to really understanding that failing is an opportunity for learning, about growing. But she also talks about kids having autonomy and student voice. So all of these connectors, one, not only will be a great opportunity for our staff because she's going to have an opportunity to speak to our staff, but also to our parents. So I wanted to highlight this wonderful opportunity we have for parent engagement to kick off our series on that important topic. So last piece just on that, I think when we think about parent education, right, we really want our parents to be engaged and to be educated, but I think we also have to recognize that one of our most important resources is really time. And we have to balance the time we spend with our parents and also recognizing our great parent community with the time we spend in our schools building cultures that focus around relationships, building growth mindsets, building engaging learning atmospheres, and that's really the time that we spend with our staff and our students. So it's a constant balancing act. At this point, I'll stop and take any questions if there are any.
Question, yeah, go ahead.
More of a comment. It's from the safety town halls, and maybe it's obvious to a lot of people, but it wasn't to me, the connection between school safety and social emotional learning. I thought that was a fantastic point you made at the town halls, and maybe just 2 minutes, because I know that we didn't have huge attendance there, and just to capture for those that watch the video maybe later, that'd be great.
Sure, thank you. I think, so the first piece is really that a relationship with a trusted adult within your school is the best method of prevention, right? We know when our kids are connected to school, right, all the emotional distressors decrease. One of those emotional distressors being violent acts or school violence. We also know when our kids are connected to school, so they have a trusted adult and a trusted peer, they're more apt to see something and then say something because they're comfortable. And so they have something to report to. So those are really the two key connections to school safety.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to say it.
Okay, any other questions? So this is what, maybe the third or fourth month we've done these little oral reports, little highlight on kids and student learning. by all accounts, I think it's being received well. I just, any other feedback, it's a short little feature in a normally packed agenda. So thank you for Faith and Chris for going a little bit beyond the normal effort before board meetings and highlighting all the work we do for kids.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I make a comment? Just a comment, not a question, but I particularly have appreciated the specific initiatives in different schools that you've pointed out to us, things that are going on, so we have an understanding of what that really means school to school. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And if I can make a comment, I attended the CAC meeting in February where Chris gave a presentation on social and emotional learning to the members of CAC, and you could have heard a pin drop while Chris was speaking. That's how engaged I think every person was in what Chris was presenting. I have a feeling that some of the people were a little skeptical at the beginning when they thought, well, here comes a social and emotional learning presentation. But that skepticism soon evaporated. And I'm remiss in not typing up minutes of that presentation. I know our fellow board member, Mr. Matheson, would like to see minutes, and I'll get those minutes prepared. But I wanted to point out that what Chris and the entire staff is doing with respect to presenting social and emotional learning and its virtues to our community is going over so well as it did in those town halls. So just a word on that.
Related to that, we do take minutes at all of those CAC minute meetings, and we bring them back to CAC to have them approved at the following meeting. I don't want you to do double the work in typing up stuff from when we've already got the minutes. Would you like for us, they're not minutes that the board has to approve because those are not board meetings, but we could certainly include them as a written report if you'd like them incorporated as a written report. That way you know what's going on. I think it gives you a pretty good sense of what the committee is certainly working through. So,
and just kind of a quick comment. I think it was at the end of the last year, the chair of the CAC came and gave a short overview of the year's work and some recommendations to the board. Is that going to be followed up again this year?
We'll get somebody to do that. Our chair that started the year has not been regularly at the meetings, so I've been kind of quarterbacking those pieces. But absolutely, we can bring the board kind of a summary of the year and where we are. It's really been a good year, I will say. Attendance has been very, very solid at CAC this year. We've got a full committee of 36. And again, as you can kind of anticipate with the schedules during the year, we've regularly had probably 25 to 28 people at each of the meetings, which one fills up our boardroom, but I think makes for kind of a good, robust, study topic. So, but again, rather than even giving you that, we'll just we'll do a little catch up at the next board meeting and kind of give you the meeting minutes, but you'll just have them. You can take a look through and kind of see what the topics are that we've been talking about.
So I have a question. So Brad and I sat on the social and emotional board team meeting, and we both started to read the book that Chris referenced, and I know now it's going to be available for the rest of the board members. Will we ever be able to have that opportunity then as a board to discuss that book? We have to do that in a public meeting, I would take it, but I think if there are initiatives or things that we would like to do with that book, I think it would be a great opportunity if we're all going to be reading it to be able to have a conversation about it. So if we could schedule something for that, if that's a route that we're going to be going.
So we're a little bit off topic here, but so Jessica Leahy's kicking off next year in September, so maybe that would be an interesting time for the next board. Unless Mr. Gambiani and Mr. Broman would like to read it and participate in retirement.
Yeah, we'll come back.
But duly noted, and Chris and I have chatted on the side, just the two of us, about that. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, next up is written reports. We have 3 written reports attached to our agenda, the monthly financial reports and the Freedom of Information Act report. And as Dr. Schuler mentioned earlier, the first Jefferson ELC construction report is up, chock full with fun pictures. And that will be a regular report on our agenda for at least the next probably year and a half. Any reports from board members? There are 2 board committee reports that are attached. Any additional information needed on those? That was the SEL committee and then the teaching and learning committee. Any other reports from board members? I'll just do a quick update. It was mentioned earlier about the safety town halls we had. It's great to be able to see that. I thought the collaboration that was apparent between our partners and our school district and really the interaction, while there wasn't a lot of people there, I thought there were some great discussions and it was a very transparent process. There were some hard questions and I think the team answered them very well and it was great to do. Next up on that would be the finance and financial performance here coming up in May, if I recall. And did the city of Wheaton videotape that on Saturday morning?
Yeah, they videotape Saturdays.
So that will be displayed through the city of Wheaton. Are we?
We will share it out as well.
Okay, good. We'll share that out as well. Any other reports from board members? Okay. We have 2 topics for future discussion. Number 1 would be student fees and then the student handbook revisions. The long-awaited student handbook revisions. We have 2 announcements in terms of upcoming board meetings. On April 17th, 2019, we have a chat with the board from 8 o'clock to 9:30 a.m. at Warrenville South High School. And then on April 24th, 2019, we have our committee of the whole at 7 o'clock at the SSC. Our next regular board meeting is on April 10th, 2019 at 7 o'clock at Johnson Elementary School. We do have 1 set of public comments on non-agenda items, or it could be on agenda items too. I won't read the same exact thing that I read last time, but Claire Cerny, you want to come forward?
Hi, my name is Claire Cerny. I just really briefly wanted to say thank you for addressing the social emotional learning component. I'm a school social work intern and this is my first school board meeting I've ever been to. It's actually for an assignment in my master's program and it's just really cool to hear a discussion of this. I wasn't expecting to hear such a well-spoken and really taken seriously discussion about it. So I just wanted to say thank you, and it was great to hear about it.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have 1 closed session item tonight. Do I have to read this twice? The exact same thing twice? Okay.
Don't make my mistake.
So our closed session items are listed for possible action. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its viability. 5 ILCS 120/2 subparagraph C subparagraph 1. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Crabtree, seconded by Mr. Hanlon. Do we need to take a roll call vote on that?
Yes. Mrs. Crabtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hanlon?
Yes.
Mrs. Erickson?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mr. Broman?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes, there will be no action taken after the closed session tonight. And so we're adjourned till closed session.